Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Monday, and it's time for a movie.
Yeah, and I was just talking to Xánada, who sent us this movie.
Yes.
And this is a good movie.
I was so jacked.
Sent us the Blu-ray.
I
the others.
love this movie.
Knew nothing about this movie. This is the first time I've even kind of really heard about it. So I'm starting from nothing when I saw it. I kind of knew something was up with the story. Like, this isn't right. And then it turns out, I thought it was going to be a movie kind of like Turn of the Screw at first. It kind of felt like Turn of the Screw.
It's influenced by that.
Yeah,
but that was, that was the name of the novella. Like,
Yeah.
the movie that was made from it was The Innocents.
Yeah.
But in 1963, that's when that came out, right?
Yeah.
This is influenced by that, but the story is completely different.
It's a good movie. And also, look, man, it's partially produced by Tom motherfucking Cruise.
Well, okay.
All right.
There's a story behind that.
All right.
So, well, wait a minute. First, let me address. Zach said, had a hell of a day. Mom passed away this morning.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
that.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I went through it just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he says, not sure what I'm feeling so far. It's a lot. Yeah, That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, that's really sad.
We all go through it eventually.
Yeah.
If you live long enough.
I mean, I don't love it, but you kind of gotta.
Yeah. Your parents would never want you, would never want to outlive you. The only other option is that fucking you outlive your parents. That's just.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's got to go one way or the other.
It's got to go one way or the other.
That's true.
And they would never want to outlive you. They don't want to see you die.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, like I said,
when you see them die, you're sparing them the pain of seeing you die.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice way of looking at it.
That's how I look at everything.
Yeah, I mean that is a good way of looking at it. Actually, I don't know if that makes you feel any better or not, but that's the best way of looking at it.
That's some Buddhist.
It is,
thinking.
yeah. It is, yeah.
It's the way of the force.
So thank you very much, Xánada, for sending us this movie. He said he sent it specifically for me because he knows I love this fucking movie. I also want to give a shout out to Dermot. I don't think he's here yet or in the chat, but he sent me a PayPal donation earlier today. So thank you very much for that. He wanted me to review Fright Night 2, which I don't think we've reviewed so far. I actually like that movie. It's quite underrated. It's not as good as the first Fright Night, actually.
I don't remember it.
But it's actually pretty good. They got most of the original cast back.
Okay.
So if we haven't done it, then either I will do it by myself, like later this week or next week, or we will do it next Monday. We'll figure it out like later on because I'm pretty sure it's free to watch like other places. But yeah. So this, because you said about Tom Cruise, and I know let's not go too off on Tom Cruise and go down a whole Tom Cruise Scientology rabbit hole.
It's the Short Man Mafia.
But I know, because I said as soon as we bring up Tom Cruise, it's going to be like an hour long because you're going to be talking about Tom Cruise the whole time. So what happened was this movie was actually the first English language film by Alejandro Amenábar. Now, he had made, I think this was only his third film overall, but like I said, he mostly was made, I think he was born in Chile, but he made Spanish language films. Now, he got kind of worldwide acclaim for a movie called Abra los Ojos, better known as Open Your Eyes. Now, Tom Cruise saw that movie, loved that movie, and he optioned the rights to make an American version of it, which was called Vanilla Sky. Which he was in and which Cameron Crowe directed. I
haven't seen that in forever. I want maybe to see that one again.
The original is better.
Is it? Okay.
The Spanish language one is better. Vanilla Sky was okay too, but the original one's like way better.
I vaguely remember seeing it. Yeah, but I saw it like back in the day.
Yeah.
And I can't remember anything about it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember liking the original one like a lot better. But yeah, so then like the next screenplay that Alejandro wrote, because he wrote the screenplay for this too. Now he originally wrote the screenplay for the others in Spanish. Tom Cruise though like really loved it, and he said, "Tell you what, I will produce this movie, but only if we do it in English." So they had the script translated into English, and then they decided to do it. Nicole Kidman was in it and everything like that. Now the interesting thing was that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they were still together at this point, but they actually announced their divorce only a couple of days before this movie came out, either before or after this movie came out.
Yeah.
So some people thought that it might like negatively affect the movie, like, that the news of their divorce came out, like, but actually it didn't. The interesting thing about this movie, so it came out in 2001. I believe it first opened in August, but it opened in, like, 4th place, but it had, like, really good word of mouth. Like, it just kept making money and kept making money, and then, like, it kind of went up to 2nd place, and then when it got released, like, in other territories, so this movie, like, only cost $17 million to make and ended up making, like, $210 million.
If y'all don't know what this is this is a ghost movie.
It's a very classic, very Gothic.
Yeah.
It's not Victorian because it's set in the 40s.
Yeah.
But it has that feel to it.
Yeah, it's a good ghost movie, and it's got a twist. Almost kind of like
it kind of has two twists.
It has a couple twists, but you know something's up from the very beginning. You're not in normal reality.
But that's what's great about it, is because you're not entirely sure what's going on, and I think that's what's really, like, intriguing about it, is that, like, you're watching it the whole time being like, you know something's fucked up, but you don't know exactly what it is. Now, some people said that because a lot of people have said, well, this has, you know, this movie came out a long time ago, so we're going to spoil it, you know what I mean? I'm sure that, like, most people...
If you want to see this movie, you want to check out now, because we're going to fucking spoil the shit out of it. It's a great movie.
Because we got to talk about it,
but
so you know what I mean?
You can always go check out now, and then you can come back and listen to the discussion after you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
You'll probably see it for free on some of the damn subscriptions.
I don't know. This seems to kind of be hard to get hold of. Okay. I believe there is a Criterion Collection edition now, which came out fairly recently.
I can see this getting Criterion.
Yeah, and Zach said, I think Criterion released a new version of this in 4K.
Yeah.
But the color timing looks totally different. Yeah, I think that was fairly recent. I thought, because I saw some reviews of it when...
It's an important movie. It's hard to believe that this movie was made in 2001. It feels, in a way, kind of like older. It's like a revamped classic movie, but you don't realize... You think, like, well, what old classic book was this based on? It's not. It's
an original...
Movie. It's a modern movie, yeah.
And like I said, the guy that directed it, Alejandro Amenábar, he wrote it, directed it, and he did the score. Yeah. So he's like a Renaissance man.
The time that I was watching, I was like, this is like Turn of the Screw or The Innocents.
Yeah, and like I think that, I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's not the same story.
No,
but in the sense that there's a woman and 2 kids, and, like, in this creepy old house, and there's ghosts and shit like that, maybe. It's just, so it's kind of that. But other than that, but I kind of feel like the cool thing about this, so, like, if you liked The Innocents from 1963, the one with Deborah Carr, if you liked The Haunting from 1963. Oh, wait, I think The Innocents was 1961. The Haunting was 1963, which, of course, was based on The Haunting of Hill House, the Shirley Jackson novel from 1959. And I'm not talking about, because they remade The Haunting in 1999, and that was a fucking abortion. That was a horrible fucking movie. Even there was good actors in it. Lily Taylor was in it. Catherine Zeta-Jones was in it. Liam Neeson was in it. It was fucking awful. I hated it so much. But and I saw it in the theater because I was like, I know this is probably going to suck, but it's like, I wanted to go see it because I love The Haunting so much and I love the novel so much. And I was just like, well, that was a fucking waste of 2 hours that I'll never get back. But yeah, it sucked. And I even gave it another chance because I was like, but this can't have sucked as bad as I thought it did. Oh, it did. It was worse. So yeah. But if you liked those original ones, I kind of feel like this is almost a little bit kind of going back to some of the kind of creepy old dark house stuff, like from the 40s, like the Spiral Staircase, which I just talked about too much, which wasn't a ghost story necessarily. It was more like a serial killer thing.
Also kind of reminds me of that damn movie that had the dude who played Patton with George C. Scott. What was it?
The Changeling. Yeah, somebody mentioned that earlier. Yeah, because it's like just a real low key. Yeah. There's no, I mean, there's a couple of jump scares, if you want to call them that, but there's no special effects really. There's no, a lot, it's just very restrained. And most of the creepiness just comes from shit you don't see or because you don't know what's going on, like the mystery, you know what I mean? This has like a couple of really, really creepy scenes in it. Yeah. Somebody pointed out, I think it was Danny, that pointed out that the seance scene toward the end is probably an homage to the Changeling, which I could see that. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, it also kind of, there's something about it kind of reminded me of The Legacy.
Yeah.
So I think it's the old house, The Legacy and the Evil, where they're in this big old fucking house that feels is haunted. It's just classic. It's just a very classic. If you like those old fucking gothic ghost story horror movie, this is it. The weird thing about the movie, well, maybe it's a little too early to break it. The main characters are the ghosts.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Well, no, we
spoiler.
told you we were going to spoil.
Told you we were going to spoil. The main characters are the ghosts, and you think they're alive and that they're being haunted by ghosts. No, they're ghosts being haunted by people having a seance on the other side.
It's like an inverted
version. It's,
you know what I would love?
how the ghosts see you.
And I was thinking about this as I was rewatching, because I think this is my third or fourth viewing of this movie. I actually saw this movie in the theater when it first came out, and then I saw it again probably a couple years later, like on DVD or whatever, and then I think I saw it one other time subsequently, and then I saw it this time. So this might have been the third or fourth time. This is a movie... I kind of feel like a lot of people were like, oh, because The Sixth Sense had come out in 1999, and everybody knew the twist of that. Bruce Willis was dead the whole time, and all this other kind of stuff. And this has kind of the same twist in that the characters you're following the whole time have been dead. You know, the whole movie have been dead the whole time. But it's not exactly the same. I guess because it's more like a period piece. It's more like a Gothic horror. Sixth Sense is more a classic ghost story, but it's kind of just set in the modern day and shit like that. It's much creepier. It's kind of going back to an older style of filmmaking, I feel like. And, you know, so I'm kind of like when somebody asked, Tom, did you see the twist coming?
I knew that
he knew something, because he was he kept trying to like get me to tell him.
Yeah.
He was like, how much you want to bet that blah de blah? And I was just like, dude, I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie like a bunch of times, and
I knew it wasn't happening in normal time space.
Yeah,
Especially when the husband came back, the way he was acting, and then he left. I was like,
he
no.
he got it
I
toward.
knew he was a ghost.
He got it kind of toward the end.
Yeah.
Like kind of toward the end, like he was just like, oh, okay, now it's. I don't remember what point. Like I think after the husband left.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, Nicole Kidman and the kids are dead.
They're good.
Like he got it, but I think at first. This is kind of interesting at first, and I think this was a deliberate misdirect on the point of on the part of the director. At first, they wanted you to think that the servants were up to something nefarious.
Yeah, at first I thought that maybe they were doing some witchcraft.
Yeah, that was like the first. That's where he was going, and like I said, I think that's kind of where they wanted you to go with it because they were acting kind of shifty.
Yeah, and during that phase, I was going like, this is kind of like The Legacy.
Right.
Which you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's homage in a lot of great flicks. If you like this type of movie, if you haven't seen The Legacy, see that one. It's about satanic witches and passing down the legacy.
Yeah, we reviewed it, but a long time ago.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
In an old fucking British fucking mansion. Kind of felt a little bit like this. Bunch of satanic witches in there. Sith. Bunch of Sith. Has Sith powers. Yeah. Fucking cool flick.
Xánada said, when you say Gothic horror, what makes it Gothic? Is it the aesthetic?
The aesthetic.
It's not just that. Gothic horror, at least in the classic sense, usually has something to do with the past intruding on the future or on the present in a particular kind of way. Gothic horror usually has to do with like creepy old houses, like on a moor somewhere, family curses, like, some murder, some secret that happened a long time ago that's still impacting stuff in the present day.
Like Fall of the House of Usher.
All of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different tropes to it, but that's usually there's some element of melodrama, but it's almost always some kind of like past buried secret that's still impacting the characters in the present.
And it's kind of slower. It doesn't have jump scares. It's just creepy shit, and then things are revealed. It's like the opposite of a slasher.
Yeah.
The Gothic horror is the opposite of a slasher. More like slow burn.
Yeah, and honestly, I think when done well, that is a lot more effective. Because I like slasher movies, but they're not scary to me. Which is weird because slashers that could happen in real life, right? But, whereas ghost stories and stuff, generally don't, at least not in the way you see them in movies. But I always found, like, Gothic stories, like haunted house kind of stories, like, way scarier.
Yeah.
And psychological horror, like, way scarier than, like, gory. Like, I like those too, but I don't think that are scary.
I knew something was up when Nicole Kidman's character said that I can't leave the house. And that the kids can't be exposed to sunlight. They'll start burning and blistering. And I was like, this ain't real.
Well,
maybe she was crazy.
Well, that's kind of the cool thing about this movie. And I think that kind of the great thing about it is that it's good to watch it again knowing the twist, because you can pick up all the stuff that's in there, like all the little throwaway bits of dialogue that didn't really seem to matter in the end that like are really important when you know what the twist is. So I really liked revisiting it because I knew that them and the servants were all dead, right? And I knew that the people, like, quote unquote haunting them, the intruders, were living people that were in the house and a medium. So knowing that, you get like all of these little nuances that were written into the script that when you just watch it the first time and you're thinking that these are living people being haunted by ghosts, you don't really pick up on. Like, one of the things that I only picked up on this time, and like I said, I think this is the third or fourth time I've watched this, was that there's a couple of times where one of the kids, the daughter, Anne, she gets mad, like, at the table, and she starts, like, hyperventilating. And Nicole Kidman says to her, like, stop breathing like that. Stop breathing, she says. And then, like, later on, the little boy, Nicholas, when him and the sister are, like, in the closet and they're scared and he starts hyperventilating and she says the same thing. It's like, stop breathing. And then you find out at the end that Nicole Kidman's character, Grace, she smothered those kids. Yeah. So it's like, so that's kind of why that kept coming up. And another thing that I didn't realize, too, is that she complains about migraines through the whole thing. Yeah. And I don't know if she had migraines when she was alive, but they might be referring to the fact that she shot herself in the head. Yeah. That might be what that is. And that didn't even occur to me, like, the first couple times.
In the forehead with a shotgun.
Yeah.
12-gauge shotgun.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, if you haven't seen this and you don't know the story, it's set in 1945, like right after the end of World War II. It's set on the island of Jersey, which is the largest of the Channel Islands in the English Channel. It's actually closer to France than it is to England, but it's still like an English protectorate. I think it's got its own little thing going on, but it's still like part of Britain. And fun fact, well, it's not so fun fact, I think it was the only part of the United Kingdom that was actually occupied by the Germans in World War II, which a fact which they do bring up in the movie, but it was the only part that was. And so she lives in this house with these two kids who have a sunlight allergy, or like a light allergy, which I guess is a real thing. I didn't really know. Because the thing about it is that once you find out that everybody's dead, and this is a question that I saw a lot of people bring it up, like in different forums about this movie. They're like, well, did the kids have a sunlight allergy like when they were alive? Is that like a real thing? I'm going to say, or is it because obviously they use it as a metaphor for she's trying to keep her kids sheltered from the truth, right? Like, she doesn't want them to go into the light. She doesn't want them to know what really happened to them. So she's shielding them from it. Like, it's metaphorical. But I tend to think that probably they did have that when they were alive, because they didn't seem to know they were dead, and they didn't seem to think anything was different. You know what I mean? Like, they were just operating the way that they had always operated, thinking that they were still alive. So I'm assuming that they had that when they were alive as well. But so, yeah. So they're photosensitive. Now, she says, Grace is Nicole Kidman's character's name. And she says, oh, well, the servants just up and left about a week ago. I don't know why. So these three new servants turn up on the doorstep. Now, ostensibly, she had like mailed an advertisement to put in the newspaper for new servants, right? Because the other ones like took off without even collecting their pay, she says. But then later on, so she's like, okay, well, you guys come in, you're hired, whatever. Like, I need help with the house and all this. And it turns out that they had worked there before, so they were familiar with the house. And then later on, she realizes, she goes to the mailbox and she sees that the ad that she sent never got sent. Like, the mailman didn't come to pick it up, which you find out why that is later on.
Yeah, they didn't know mailman. Where did they come from?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, well, and the mailman, well, they were dead. Yeah. So it's like, nobody was living there, so the mailman didn't come. So that's why. But so she's like, so what the fuck are you guys doing here? Like, how did you know? And so you know immediately, and like I said, this is kind of like a good misdirect, because you're initially primed to think that the servants are up to some shit. And then, like, as the story goes on, it seems like the servants are, like, saying, like, cryptic shit to, like, one another. Like, you know, oh, well, she'll need to be told at some point, or, like, or they're saying weird shit. And then, like, at one point, they're, like, out in the yard, like, covering up some gravestones and shit like that. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like I said, the first time I saw this, I saw this in the theater in 2001. I don't think I guessed what the twist was I don't remember guessing what the twist was. Like, I knew that something was going on with the servants, like that they were up to some shit, but I wasn't entirely sure what it was. But so it got me, you know what I mean? Even though I'd seen The Sixth Sense in the theater too, and it's just kind of like, so yeah, you're kind of primed, and you've seen like a lot of other horror that had they were dead the whole time kind of thing. That's not the only time that's been done. But so yeah, so as soon as the servants show up, all kind of like weird paranormal crap starts happening. Like the little girl starts saying, hey, I keep seeing this little boy named Victor like in the room, and he's talking to me, and you know, and Grace hears him crying, and then she like hears the piano playing in the middle of the night, somebody running around upstairs that she thinks is a servant, but it's not. And so there's kind of all this crazy like supernatural shit happening. And at first, because Grace is like super religious, they're like super Catholic, right, and like super hardcore about it, and she homeschools the kids, and she is all about the concept of like purgatory and limbo and all that kind of stuff, and just telling these kids. So the concept of limbo is kind of like a big thing, because that's kind of how they end up. So the whole thing is that her husband went off to fight in the war. He went off to the front, and he never came back. She says he went off to fight, and I hadn't heard anything for a year and a half. But then, like, she decides at some point, she gets all flipped out. She starts seeing, like, paranormal shit happen. Because for a while, she just thinks the kids are making it up, and she starts yelling at them and punishing them and stuff. But then she sees it herself. So she's like, well, fuck this. I'm going to go into the town and, like, get the priest to, like, come here and bless the house or whatever. Because he was supposed to come before, but he never came. Again, because they were dead. So, because they had died at some point. I think it was supposed to be like a week or two prior to the events. Because the very first shot of the movie is Nicole Kidman waking up screaming her head off like she was just having a nightmare. So I'm assuming that was her thinking that everything that happened, like her killing her kids and then blowing her own head off, I'm assuming that was her waking up from that in limbo. Mm. And I think maybe a week or two had passed, is all. Because she had put the advertisement in the mailbox, right? Yeah. Apparently. And then the mailman didn't pick it up. So I guess the mailman only comes once a week.
Well, how could she couldn't put a real letter in the mailbox?
Well, she had done it when she was still alive, maybe, because she said that the servants left. Right?
Yeah, but then in the real world, people would have known that they were dead. So,
well, that's why it never got picked up.
Or it got picked up, but the job never would have been taken, and
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
But that's why nobody came out there, and she's just like, I don't know why nobody came. Like the priest never came out here, and all this other stuff. So she's gonna go get the priest to come back and bless the house because she thinks the shit's haunted, right? But turns out she goes out, and then it's just all fog because she said a bunch of times it's like, ooh, it's really foggy. Wow, it's never lasted this long and shit like that. But she goes out, and it's like the fog is so thick that she can't find her way. And then all of a sudden, her husband turns up. And she's like, oh my God, he's back. And he's still got his uniform on and everything, even though the war's been over for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're talking about how creepy it was, the photos of the dead people.
I know. And that's a real thing, too.
It was a real thing, but the explanation given for the behavior wasn't quite accurate.
The reason that she gave that explanation was that the reason that the servants came there was they were supposed to slowly reveal to her that she was dead. And they said, you can't just tell her outright, she won't believe you. So you have to get her to get to that, a revelation on her own. So that's kind of why they were telling her the stuff they were telling her.
Wondering, in real life, the reason why they did that is because photography was very expensive. And if a person died unexpectedly, chances are they didn't have a photograph of them. So they wanted to take a photograph of them before they put them in the ground. So you can remember what they looked like. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So they were taking pictures of the kids because little kids were dying and they didn't have any photos of them. So they paid for photos so you'd remember them. It's sad when you think about it.
When it is seriously creepy.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can vote. They're all over the internet if you want to look. Victorian death photography. It was very, very common.
Yeah.
But that was the reason. So when you know why,
it's not as creepy.
It's not as creepy. I mean, it's still creepy, But
we live in a time where you
the
can take
reason
photos
is,
all the time.
Yeah,
you know
all
what I mean?
day long.
All
There's
day
too
long.
many photos of
Right.
everybody. We're like, okay,
Right.
enough. We know what
Right.
you look like. You know
Not
what I
in
mean?
those days. And they just wanted to record what they looked like so the parents could
Right.
remember and the people could remember. They did, you know, that's all it was.
Yeah. So, but I liked that they used that as a plot point because that is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it also factored into the plot later on because the fact that she found that book and she's like, oh, that's creepy as shit. And it's almost like she's in denial. You know what I mean? Because she doesn't know she's dead, right? So she's looking at this book and she's freaking her out. She's like, get rid of this. You know what I mean? I don't want it in the house. And so she's still not getting to a place where she's accepting her own death or accepting what she did. You know what I mean? And then, like, toward the end, when she actually finds the photograph in the room, like, of the 3 servants and they're dead, that I thought that was like a really good, that was a really good setup. Like, there was a really good setup and payoff that she finds this photo and that the 3 photos is like this big revelation that they were dead. You know what I mean? And they had died, because I was looking at, somebody was talking about this on Reddit because they had all these questions about it. And they're like, and they were asking about the servants, and they seem to have the misconception that the servants had worked for her before. I was like, no, the servants died in 1851. It said that on the back of the picture.
Yeah.
And then Bertha Mills, the nanny or whatever, she says after, Grace has figured out that she's actually dead, she's like, yeah, we died in the tuberculosis outbreak. You know what I mean? So they've been dead a long time. They had worked at the house a long time ago, like before Nicole Kidman and them like even moved in, you know? But yeah, so they were just there because they loved that house and they were there to usher her into realization. But so, and a lot of people ask too about like, well, the husband, because the husband shows up and he seems like super out of it. And he only stays for a day and a night. And then the next day he says he has to leave again.
To go back to the war.
Yeah, and he's going to go back to the front. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, the war's over.
Yeah.
And so a lot of
no,
people have speculated, it's like, well, what is the deal with him? Like, why did he even... I mean, there's a couple different interpretations. He's obviously dead. Because... And I think when he came... I think he was actually looking for his home. Yeah. It was just this fog that was this amorphous fog or whatever. He was killed in the battle, on the battlefield. And I think that he was looking for his home. And then when he saw Grace in the fog, he was surprised because he thought she was still alive. He would think she was still alive because he didn't know that she had killed the kids and herself because it hadn't happened that long ago. So he showed up and he's like, what the, like, oh, you must be dead too because I can see you. And so then when he goes back to the house, and he's all like flipped out. And then he says that he talks to Anne, the daughter. Anne told me what happened that day. So Anne told him that she had flipped out and killed the kids. Yeah. And he's like, okay, well, I can't stay here. And I think that he had to go back to the front because that's where he died.
Yeah, he was haunting a battlefield.
And like that's how he had to stay. And then when he came back, he wanted to see them one last time. Yeah. But then he found out that she had done that. And he's like, yeah, I can't really stay anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like, yeah, you're not for me.
because there was this whole thing. Like, she was just like, why did you go? Like, because he volunteered. And she's like, and I got the feeling that you were trying to get away from me, not just away from, you know what I mean? Right. You could have just stayed here with your family. So I think there was, like, problems even before all of that. It's great because it's like, it hints at a much bigger story that was happening before the events of the movie. It just kind of leaves you to fill in blanks.
Well, I surmised that she was a little bit fucking crazy before she killed the kids. That he was trying to get away from her. That she might have been a little bit crazy.
Well, and the thing about it, and I thought too that maybe the thing that had driven her crazy, because Anne, the daughter, she seemed to be the only one that kind of knew what was going on. She didn't know she was dead, but she had a better grasp on what had happened. She knew that their mother had gone mad and it hurt them. She knew that much. But she didn't know they were dead, though, because she flipped out, like, at the seance and was like, we're not dead, you know what I mean? So I don't think she had gone that far, but I think that she knew more what was going on than anybody else did.
Murder Hornet says, I've never seen this movie. And then people say, you should check it out, man. We just ruined it for you. But no, actually, it would still be cool to watch. I know you, fucking murder hornet. You can't remember one thing to the next, but you forget.
Even if you know the twist, it's still good. And honestly, like, because I already knew the twist because I've seen it a couple of times. So when I watched it again, it's cool to watch it knowing the twist because you can then you can appreciate the screenwriting more because all the clues that are peppered in there.
It's a ghost story from the point of view of the ghosts.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would think I was going to say, and I don't think I finished my thought, but I would love to see somebody remake, even if it was just like a fan movie on YouTube or something, make this movie from the point of view of the living people. Because you never see the living people in the house until the end. Like, and they're just like around the seance table, like flipping out. Like, because can you imagine? Because you remember like the scene where, like toward the end, where the kids wake up and they look up and it's sunny in their room and they start screaming because all the curtains are gone. And they're like running around the house going, oh, all the curtains are gone. And like fucking Grace is flipping out like, who took all the curtains? Well, the living people took the curtains, and the living people took the curtains because the ghost kept opening and closing up all the time. Yeah. And they were probably getting sick of it. So they were just like, fuck this. We're just taking
locking the doors too.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So it's just like, I would love to see this if you kind of imagine this movie from the point of view of the living people, which I could kind of do this time around watching it because I knew that everybody in the house, like Nicole Kidman and the kids and the servants, are dead. You don't see the living people till the end, but you can imagine what the living people are experiencing by watching what the ghosts are doing.
They show some at the seance. Fucking a book picks up off the ground and starts getting ripped apart in midair.
Yeah.
Because Nicole Kidman in the other dimension is ripping it up. Like
she's flipping out.
So they're there, and you know, it's all these not Victorians, but these old people in the 40s going, we have made contact.
Yeah.
And they're doing the whole fucking.
I love seance movies, but I love that whole scene. And like the lady that's the medium, she's blind and she's got like the cataracts and stuff, and she's super.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the seance, I said, oh, there's the intruders. The intruders were the living people intruding in the ghost world.
Yeah.
Through a seance.
Because they couldn't see them most of the time. Yeah. Anne could see Victor, the little boy, but he was alive.
Yeah.
Because he kept saying, remember that fucking great scene where Anne and Nicholas, the ghost kids, they're in the bedroom, and Anne keeps saying, it's like, Vic, he's over there behind the curtains, and Nicholas like, shut up, you're freaking me out, because he thinks Victor's a ghost, right? Yeah. So he's like, look, I'll prove it to you that he's over there. And like, she goes in the curtains, like go like that. She's like, I'll make him touch you. And then this hand comes and touches his face, and he wigs the fuck out. Yeah. But that kid's alive. Yeah. And he's like touching the ghost. You know what I mean? So it's like, I really love that. Like I said, the trope of, they were dead the whole time. That's been done lots of times. But I don't know. There just seems like there's just like something slightly different about this one. Because like I said, it's almost like it's like a perfectly inverted ghost story. You don't see the living people until the seance scene at the end. Yeah. You only have hints of them. Like that also, there's that other great scene like toward the beginning where Anne says to her mom, she's like, yeah, the intruders, they're in the junk room over there. And she goes in and like everything is covered with sheets and all that other kind of shit. And she hears voices. Like, she hears a little boy and she hears a woman talking, and like really quiet. She's like, it's a woman or something like that. And she hears them and she's like, what the fuck? And then she starts like tearing the sheets off of everything. Yeah. And the living people would have just seen the sheets coming off like by themselves. And then they ran out and like slammed the door and stuff like that.
And the mom keeps talking to the daughter. She could hear the daughter crying. And then fucking when she saw the daughter, she says, I wasn't crying. She says, I was talking to the little boy. She said, what little boy? It's that little boy that was here.
Yeah, Victor.
And she's thinking that she's seeing ghosts. She wasn't seeing ghosts. The little boy was alive. She was a ghost. Yeah. She was talking to a little boy.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So, it's like a really great... Now, okay, so the thing about it, though, I love that this movie is called The Others, because that could mean a lot of things. I mean, that could mean them in the house. That could mean the servants that came. That could be the living people that they called the intruders. That could mean a lot of other stuff. But then, like, at the end... So here's the thing. They talk a lot about the concept of limbo in this movie. Because like I said, there's a lot of... Grace is very religious, and she's instructing her children in the Bible and makes them read these Bible stories and all this other stuff and tells them about children's limbo, that unbaptized kids and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of that theming in there. But the interesting thing is that you would think that the whole point of the servants coming there was to reveal gently to Grace and the kids that they were dead, right? And I think in a traditional kind of haunted house movie, that would mean it's like, oh, she accepted that she murdered her kids, you know, she accepted that she killed herself, and then they would go to heaven or whatever the fuck. But I kind of like that this one didn't really do that. It kind of implies, actually I don't even know if implied, it pretty much says pretty clearly that they're not leaving. They're staying in the house. Yeah. I mean, Grace says to the kids, this is our house, this is our house. They repeat it. And she's like, we're never leaving. And then the servant, you know, Bertha says to them, well, you know, there will be others, like living people that come to buy the house, because there's like a sign at the end, like obviously on the fence that says it's for sale. So it's like, and we'll just have to like learn to live with them. So the implication, I thought, was that there was no heaven.
And there's no end.
That there was no heaven, that this was their limbo, and they were stuck here forever, which is kind of sad, actually.
Well, they didn't want to leave.
Yeah, so it's like, so I'm not really sure if the end was sad, but it's like, yeah, I thought the implication was that there was no place for them to go. Like, that they were just, they had to stay there, like, forever.
Or they wanted to.
They wanted to.
They wanted to. So
now, they did come to the realization that they could be in the sunlight.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, they're dead now, so obviously that's not going to hurt them. But, you know, that it's also metaphorical, meaning that they've accepted the truth. Yes, we're dead, and yes, our mom killed us, and we forgive her and everything like that. But it's like I said, I think in a more traditional story, they'd be like, oh, yay, now they're going to go into the light or whatever, like on a haunting.
No, they stayed ghosts.
But no, they just stayed ghosts, and they stayed in the house. Because it's like the living family were like, fuck this, we're out of here. These ghosts obviously don't want us here. You know, we're leaving. So, you know, the three of them are just in the window, like looking, the ghosts are looking down the window, like while the family's leaving.
The movie's intent was not to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
The movie's intent was to explain to you what a ghost was. All right? The ghosts want to stay there. It's their house.
Yeah.
They're not going nowhere. All right? They're in limbo. And that's what they showed you. And they're explaining to you why that would happen. Why ghosts would happen. But
and I liked that.
Strong story. Yeah.
I liked that ending, though. Yeah. Because I thought...
And then it shows the future. And it shows people coming, it's for sale. People are going to move into the house.
Yeah, because that's what the servant says.
You're going to be haunted. And fucking that's
you're going to haunt the shit.
It's the origin story for the haunting.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good way of putting it.
How the ghosts and why the ghosts are haunting this place. So it's great. And then the people are going to come.
And you're going to have to like live with them.
Deal with these people, with these ghosts.
You're going to have to deal with it because the Bertha says to them, it's like sometimes you'll sense them and sometimes you won't. Yeah. And I'm assuming that sometimes the living people will sense the ghosts and sometimes they won't. So it's like some people might live there and be totally fine. Yeah. And because the thing about it is that...
They can't always see you from beyond the veil.
Right. And like, and Grace and the kids, you know, they didn't see the living people.
No.
Grace never saw them until the very end. Anne saw them.
They're telling you, they're showing you, and this is based upon some of the experience that I've had in that damn bad house and other poltergeist shit, which is different. Poltergeist is not ghost. All right, but I was in a house that I believed it was haunted. It was just a bad house, all right? I couldn't prove it, but you could feel it. The purpose of the haunting is not to serve the humans. These ghosts have their own purpose for being there.
Yeah, that's their own agenda.
Yeah, that's their agenda.
This is their house.
And they don't exist so you can see them. You just happen to see them.
Yeah.
They're living in the past. Basically, they're in the past in another dimension, kind of like a what they call a residual haunting. It's kind of like they're repeating the past, or they're living out the past forever in a parallel dimension. You know what I mean? For them, it's always going to be the 40s, and they're in their house doing their shit, and they don't see the humans unless a human can see them and does things to see them. And then, from the point of view of the ghost, the living person seems like a ghost.
Yeah.
Something from beyond, you know.
Yeah, because they didn't see the living people like rattling around in the house all the time.
No, just sometimes.
They really only saw them, Anne saw the little boy, and she said she saw the old lady, the medium, the most. She said she'd seen her 14 times, like from her drawing, and I'm assuming that's because that woman was a medium. So what you're assuming, they don't show a lot of this. You're kind of left to figure it out on your own, but you're left to assume that the husband and wife and their son Victor moved into this house. And then there was some paranormal activity, and then they called in a medium, like, and I'm assuming that they bought the house knowing what had happened there.
Yeah.
I would guess, because I would imagine that it was probably, a mom smothering her 2 kids and shooting herself. That's kind of a big story. Yeah. So I'm assuming that they knew what had happened. But they bought the house anyway. There were some disturbances, so they brought this medium in to see if they could exorcise the spirits or ask them what they wanted or calm them down or whatever. And that wasn't really happening because the ghosts were not aware that they were dead.
Yeah, and the older ghost, the female, who was pretending to be the nanny.
Yeah. She
was the old nanny. She said that their purpose was to learn to live together, both the living and the dead.
Yeah.
That
which I know this is going to be kind of an out there comparison.
Yeah.
But it's a similar story to Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Because in Beetlejuice, the Maitlands died in the car crash. They realized they were dead, but they were stuck in the house for however long it was, 125 years, I think was the rules. And so they were stuck there with the living people. And they just started haunting the living people because they hated the living people and their design sense, and they wanted them to leave. You know what I mean? But it was the same kind of thing. It was a similar kind of concept, except done funny. You know what I mean? But it's the same kind of thing. So I'm kind of curious if you made, like, please nobody make a sequel to this, but if you did, I think they're going to do a remake though, or they announced a remake in 2020, but I haven't heard anything about it, so maybe it'll never happen. Hopefully it won't, because this movie's good the way it is. You don't got to remake it. So, I mean, just don't. You could make another ghost story. There's lots of other stories you could make. But, so, are we led to assume that even though Grace and the kids now know that they're dead, like, if somebody moves into the house that they don't like, they're going to cause, like, an unholy racket until those people leave? You know what I mean? Maybe. Like in Beetlejuice. They're going to do, like, some fucking...
Well, the ghosts seem to be in their own world most of the time.
Yeah, it does, which is kind of cool. So they could kind of like coexist like in different dimensions. Because Danny was asking about the food. I would love to see someone, where's all the ghostly food coming from? Now, the interesting thing, they did actually kind of address that a little bit, because when the servants first showed up, and the first time that Mrs. Mills, the nanny, made food for the kids, Anne complained about how funny the toast tasted. So I'm assuming that she was... And the way that they framed it was kind of like, oh, well, it's a new person. Because she's like, oh, well, it's a new person making it. But really, when you know the twist, it's because she didn't know she was dead and was not used to eating food as a dead person. So it was that. Now, I thought, like, I saw another review that said, oh, they never ate food any other time, like, other than the toast. But I don't think that's the case, because I think there was a scene where her and Nicholas were at the table eating soup. So there was food in the house. But like I said, the ghosts... I think they were just in a dimension where shit was the same as it was when they were alive. So they were perceiving the way it was when they were alive. Whether that was the way it was in reality, obviously it wasn't, because otherwise the living people would be seeing 2 bowls of soup on the table with like spoons going like that, and they probably didn't see that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that the ghosts were operating in their own little dimension and were just going through the motions of stuff that they remembered, rather than... Which I think has been done in other movies before, right? Where like a ghost just remembers... What is the movie that I'm thinking of where the ghost just saw the way that the place used to be and not the way it was now?
Well, I think that's what it was.
I kind of feel like that was the implication. They were in their own in their own memory of it. So it wasn't necessarily like, sometimes there was interaction between the living people. Like I said, when someone was playing the piano and Grace heard it and then went down there and like the door was opening and closing by itself, and you know what I mean, and that was a living person doing that. But and the curtains and everything. But I think for the most part, when they were just doing regular stuff, like she was just sitting in a room embroidering or having tea or whatever, I don't think that a living person, if they'd walked in the room, would see a teacup going like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like somebody. I think that they were just perceiving their lives the way they were.
They only crossed over
before they died.
at specific points. If a person was gifted enough who could see ghosts, and then there was interaction. If they were doing a ritual and they were firing up the medium, then there was interaction.
Right.
If not, then it would have been intermittent. You might hear things in the other room. You might hear, but you're not gonna. It's not gonna be constant. It's gonna be intermittent contact.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of implied by the way it was. But like I said, I kind of like that idea because you're both occupying the same space, but you're like in a different dimension slightly.
Right. Evidently, the little boy had a gift or was talented.
Yeah.
Okay, because he could
he could communicate
he could
with
talk.
her.
Yeah, she could see him.
Yeah.
Right.
And the funny thing about it
matches up with little kids being sensitive to that. So because they don't little kids haven't learned to shut that ability off. They can just and animals also. They just follow their instincts. They take things as they see it. They're not if the ghost is there, they feel the ghost. They might interact a little bit. You know, it's that kind of deal.
The funny thing about it too was that Anne, the daughter, even though for most of the movie she perceived that Victor was a ghost, she wasn't afraid of it. And like I said, that kind of tracks with her being not knowing that she was dead because she didn't, but knowing that something was going on because it didn't frighten her that she was interacting with this other world. You know what I mean? So I think on some level, maybe she knew deep down what was going on.
Yeah.
Because she seemed to be the only person that remembered all this stuff. Gotta say, too, that it's like, I'm not usually a big fan of child actors, but the two kids that were in this were fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, they're real good. Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah. This is a good, high-quality movie. If you want to see a good fucking ghost movie, classic, Gothic-type ghost movie, you want to see this one.
Yeah, and if you like this, like I said, if you haven't seen The Haunting, the one from 1963, not the 1999 one, which sucked donkey balls, but the 1963 one, The Innocents from 1961. I would also recommend The Changeling. That was 1980, I want to say.
Around that.
And also, if you like this type of thing, like if you want to see one that's kind of like this, that's Spanish language also, because this is a Spanish director. He's Chilean, actually. But another Spanish language one, which is really, really good and really creepy and really sad, is The Orphanage. Like, that's also a fucking great one. And I don't think we've ever reviewed that one. That one's kind of similar to this, but not that similar. But it's like a ghost story. Also, I'm sure most of y'all have seen it, but the Guillermo del Toro movie, The Devil's Backbone, is also kind of along these same lines. And that's set in the Spanish Civil War. And that's also really good, really creepy. But yeah, this has got some really great... Like I said, there's only 2 or 3 jump scares in it, but they're earned. This is more creepy atmosphere. And that's kind of like the way to do it without really showing a lot of... There's no... Like I said, there's no big special effect, ghosty type shit. There's no blood. There's no gore. There's nothing like that. It's very, very low-key, and it's like super creepy.
Another one that's kind of in this genre... kind of in this vein of things. Jenny might disagree, would be Ghost and Mrs. Muir, the original.
Yeah.
Kind of like that too.
That one's kind of more.
It's good. Yeah, romance.
It's a romance, but it's also a ghost
between
story.
a living woman and a ghost. The ghost of a sea captain. She buys his house.
We reviewed that not long ago, right? That's a great movie.
That's one of my favorite ghost movies. Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Yeah.
And like, I'm a
Rex
big
Harrison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so gruff.
Yeah. Hardcore Rex Harrison. Yeah.
I mean, I love all kinds of horror movies, but haunted house movies are my favorite, and I especially like creepy, old school, gothic haunted house movies. Yeah. And this is like definitely one of the best ones. I mean, I fucking love this movie so much.
Ghost of Mrs. Muir was 60s, I think.
Yeah, when did that come out?
Black and white.
I want to say 65, but it might have been
great
earlier.
Ghost movie. Great ghost movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Hugo said this twist is kind of like The Sixth Sense. It is, and I think that at the time, well, I don't necessarily want to say that at the time people were kind of like, oh, it's just like The Sixth Sense. I think some people did say that, but honestly, this movie got such good word of mouth, and it got like a ton of fucking... It didn't get any Oscar nominations, because I kind of feel like Nicole Kidman was gonna be nominated for an Oscar, but because she also did Moulin Rouge this same year, which is also fantastic. I love that fucking movie. But she did get a Golden Globe nomination, and this movie got like a whole bunch of like, you know, Saturn Awards, BAFTA, like all kind of other stuff, and it got a Goya Award, like, which is the Spain thing, and I think this is the only English language movie that has ever won any Goya Awards, because like I said, it was a Spanish speaking director, and it was originally written in Spanish, but it was just translated into English. And like I said, we did talk about Tom Cruise being the producer on this, but it's like, it's funny that, like I said, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman,
they were on their way out.
And honestly, Nicole Kidman, I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but that like while she was filming this movie, I guess she was going through a lot of shit like with him because they were divorcing and stuff. She was gonna drop out of this movie because she was having and I think she was having a hard time like with the subject matter, like it was kind of free, because I think the movie she'd done before this was kind of like more happy and upbeat, and this was kind of a bummer. So I think it was kind of a lot. So she did think about dropping out, but honestly, I think this might be my favorite performance of hers. I don't know. That's hard to say because she's a really great actor, but I don't know. She's fucking great in this. She's really great in this. I mean, she's so good because she's like super rigid and she's like super uptight. And just like, even she's very like, her physicality in this is really good, like her body language and stuff, it's like really, really good. But then like as the movie goes on and she starts to kind of lose it, and you can kind of see the breakdown like as in her body language and her facial expressions. It's just like a really, really good expression. I'm surprised she didn't get an Oscar nomination. I think they thought she was going to, but she didn't. But she got a bunch of other Oscar noms for this.
Good looking woman. Very good, a good-looking woman.
She's very, I always thought she was one of the most beautiful women.
Yeah, it was funny. Not my type. I never found her sexually attractive. Too thin, I think, but good looking.
She's very elegant.
Yeah, the elegant look. Yeah.
She's very elegant. She's very statuesque.
Yeah, the bone structure and shit.
And she's a fantastic actor. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Zach said I really love her in Eyes Wide Shut too. Eyes Wide Shit.
Eyes Wide Shut's a good flick, man.
Yeah, she's great in that too.
I like it more.
It reveals new layers upon, well, like a lot of Kubrick's films.
Yeah, it's Kubrick. Yeah.
You can't just watch those once. You have to watch them multiple times and like analyze.
You know,
them.
Tom did a great job in Eyes Wide Shut because he just comes across as a fucking dick, really. And
he's always best when he's playing
best as a dick.
Close to his real personality, I'm guessing.
It's like, dude, man, fucking, you're fucking around and you're mad that your wife fucking fantasized about.
Well, see, that was the only thing, because I saw Eyes Wide Shut in the theater, because I was like, it's Kubrick, it's his last movie, I have to go see it in the theater. So I saw it in the theater, and I've seen it probably a dozen at least times since then. And that's one thing that kind of bothers me. Like, I get where he was going with it. Yeah. That it was kind of like blurring the line between, you know, where do you draw the line between you know, shit that you imagine or your fantasies and stuff like that and shit you do in real life. You know what I mean? I get it. But I don't know in real life if anybody would go down that dark a path just because their wife imagined some shit. Like, I kind of feel like if she had maybe done, like, she wouldn't have had to do anything like bad necessarily, but just closer than, hey, I just saw a dude and thought about it. Like, that seemed a little, like, the shit that, the journey that he went on after that seemed a little excessive for that. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I think that's literally the only problem I have with the movie. I kind of feel like I wish they had beefed up what she did to set him on that journey. But I guess they were trying to say that he was that douchey and that insecure that just the thought of her imagining leaving him over some rando that was enough to send him on this date where he almost actually did some shit. Yeah. Like, she didn't do anything.
He was going to secret sex parties.
Right. It's like, look, I would be mad. Yeah. I'd be like, look, I just imagined something.
Yeah, what are you going to do at the sex party, bro?
And thought about it. You went to the shit.
Yeah, you went to the sex party.
I never did that. What the fuck? It's like, this is not equivalent. Yeah. This is not equivalent. You went to the sex party to try to get some action. It didn't work out, but you went. He went. He went to that that sex worker's house. Yeah. He went to, like I said, she didn't do anything. Yeah. All she told him was like, oh, this one time a long time ago, I imagined this shit. But she didn't do anything.
Yeah.
All she did was like glance at the dude.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kubrick. I like all his movies.
But he actually did all that.
But
so
yeah.
I was like, those two things are not equivalent.
And Eyes Wide Shut is always one that fucking gets shit on. No, Eyes Wide Shut's great. You got to see it a couple times.
It is.
It's good.
You know.
And you got to think about it.
It's better the more times you see it. Because like I said, the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't love this.
Yeah.
I didn't love it.
Kubrick was trying to tell us, man, fucking rich and powerful dudes fucking do fucking kinky ass shit.
Well, everybody
abuse
knew
people
that.
And,
everybody knew that.
You know, this is pre-Epstein's Island. You know what I mean? But that's what he's talking about.
Well, like I said, I kind of feel like that's a given, like, throughout history.
Yeah.
PWRUSS 25 says, the whole, in the others, the scene that everybody points to, and this was the scene that creeped me out the most, which I'm going to get into in a second, but the whole scene where she comes back in the room and her daughter's in the communion thing with the puppet.
Yeah.
And then it's like an old lady.
Yeah.
You know, are you mad? I am your daughter. Like she says, that freaked me out so bad the first time I saw it.
Yeah,
because
I thought it was a witch.
But it's the medium you find out later. And she was possessed by the little girl, and it's like talking through her voice. Something
she had merged with the woman who was doing the seance.
but because I think they mentioned that later on.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. They were doing a seance.
That makes sense now.
And the medium was talking with Anne's voice.
Yeah, so she saw him as merged.
And she saw them as merged. So she saw the medium, but talking with her daughter's voice. Something that really freaks me out in horror movies is, or in any movies really, is like somebody talking with one voice, or they're not supposed to have that voice, or somebody's voice changing suddenly. Like, and I think I've mentioned this before, but you know the part in The Shining where Danny is just, where he's like, Rad, like it goes like up a bunch of notch. That like always like gives me goose, and it did it again, like when I just did it. Also, and this might be a weird example also, but if you remember in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in Judge Doom, which Christopher Lloyd, and at the end, you don't know, and again, spoiler alert, Judge Doom is a toon, and so he's like, you think he's a human the whole time, but he's actually a toon. You know, when I killed your brother, I talk just like this, and it's just like, oh, that fucking freaked me out so bad. Like, so anytime somebody talks with a voice that they're not supposed to be talking with, or their voice suddenly goes into a different register, it really, and I don't know why, I have no idea, I've explored it with myself, like lots of times, I've written a lot of blog posts about it, but I don't know.
Size of the crowd listening fucking has doubled since.
Really? Yeah. I don't know why that freaks me out so bad. So it's like, I mean, that and like doppelgangers, or like people being in two places at once, which is why David Lynch movies freak me out so much. But that is the other thing that freaks me out. Like people, so the scene with her like looking like an old lady, and then but talking with the little girl's voice, that scared the fuck out of me the first time I saw this. Oh, it's creeped me out so bad. And I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's just one of those weird things. Everybody has one of those weird things that like scares them.
If you are listening to this show recorded, I would just please like to take the time and to ask y'all, if you enjoy the show, please like, share, subscribe. And of course, you can give us what's called a super thanks, which is like a super chat, but it's when we're not live. So
you can
just letting y'all guys know that.
Can I have another?
Well, it's probably almost time to shut it down.
Well, I mean, it's only 8:30. I'm just kind of. We'll shut it down in a minute. I just want to.
You want a little bit more?
Yeah, just a little bit more. Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna have a little bit more. It's Monday night. But we got to go to the DMV tomorrow. So you know what I mean. But yeah, so that scene freaked me out. The scene. There's also a great, and I had forgotten about this scene too. And it's not even a jump scare, but the scene where she's like in the room and it's all dark and everything, and it looks like a face like in the background, like creeping out of the dark, like out of the shadows, and then you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, it's not focused on or anything like that. You're like, there's just a face back there, what the hell? And then like she turns the lights on and it's like a painting. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I thought that was so fucking great, because like I said, it wasn't even a jump scare. There was no like musical sting or anything like that. It's just, but I love just low-key shit like that. Like, to me, that's way scarier. This movie is like way scarier to me than stuff with like a bunch of jump scares, because jump scares are easy. You know what I mean? All you have to do is make a loud noise and people will jump. Good for you. You know what I mean? It's just not lasting. This movie is a movie that I've seen, you know, several times, and scenes from it like stuck with me. Even though I hadn't seen it for several years, when we watched it again last night, I remembered like most of the dialogue like verbatim. So this movie like really did stick with me like over the years, which a lot of horror movies do not, but a lot of shit stuck with me about this one. And like I said, I remember the whole twist. I remembered all of that stuff, and especially that scene with her talking and the voice. It's just like, oh, that creeped me out so bad. That kind of stuff creeps me out. And let me see. Oh, they're talking about the remake of Stepford Wives that had Nicole Kidman in it.
I didn't see it.
You didn't miss much.
The original was good enough.
I saw it in the theater, and well, they took it in a different direction, which is fair enough. But I just remember not really liking it. Because the thing about it is that the original novel, which is great, by the way, it's Ira 11. Thank you very much, Mrs. Evans Artie Party, for the super chat. Yeah, the original novel, if you didn't know, is by Ira Levin, who also wrote Rosemary's Baby. He also wrote A Kiss Before Dying. All of those novels are excellent, so if you haven't read them, like, please do. He's a great writer. Don't read the Rosemary's Baby sequel, though, because I threw it against a wall. So, like, when I finished it. So yeah. But other than that, his books are fantastic. But Stepford Wives, the original novel had a veneer of black comedy to it, as a lot of his novels did. He was actually really good at that. Subtle. Rosemary's Baby, the novel, also had a black comedy kind of tone to it too, but like I said, very subtle. It was very low key, and that kind of came across in the movie. Same with Stepford Wives. So when they made Stepford Wives in the 70s, it did have a black comedy aspect to it, but to me, that really just accentuated the horror of it, because the idea of it was like so horrifying that it's like the fact that they went like slightly black comedy with it was like made it scarier to me. And I feel like the remake, which I want to say was 2004, but I could be wrong about that. I saw it in the theater, like I said, and I was kind of sorry I did. But they went kind of full bore into the black comedy aspect, and I don't think it worked. It just didn't work. They went too far. It went too over the top. The black comedy element in the novel and in the original movie worked better because it was subtle. If you're going to take it full out, it's just, I don't know, it just didn't work as well for me. I'd have to rewatch it, though, because I think the only time I saw it was in the theater, and I was just like, man, that was just really not good at all.
I believe this movie's 23 years old.
It is, yeah.
Those little kids are old now.
Yeah.
They're in their 30s.
I don't even know if they were in anything else. Yeah. I mean, I probably should have looked. But they were great in this. They were so good. And like I said, I don't usually like child actors, but especially the girl that played the daughter.
Yeah.
She was fucking fantastic. Like, she was just exactly like a kid that age. She was just like real imperious, and she was like all sarcastic and rebellious, and I don't know.
Nicole's
I really
like 55 now?
She's got to be older than us, I would think.
No, I think she's my age.
Yeah.
I think she's my age. Maybe a little bit younger.
Zach says there was a movie that Nicole Kidman did called Birth, where she has like really short dark hair, and it almost doesn't look like her, but you can still tell because of the eyebrows. He said he always knows it's her because of the eyebrows. I never noticed her eyebrows. I'll have to look at them. Did we see that movie? That sounds kind of familiar.
She always fucking
56, Danny says.
56, okay. She's a little bit older than me by a year. She always kind of reminded me of Elizabeth Montgomery.
Yeah.
She had a similar kind of face as Elizabeth Montgomery.
Also beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that very particular kind of like statuesque.
Yeah.
Blonde.
Right.
Oh, it's Nicole Kidman, slightly more redhead.
Pretty, but not sexy. Fucking.
Yeah, because those are two different things.
Very different things.
Like I said.
Barbara Eden, sexy. All right, that was the competition for Bewitched, was fucking I Dream of Jeannie. Fucking, they were both fucking. Those were both hotties of their time, man. So two of the best looking women ever been built. But fucking, I think they were possibly been built. I don't know. Let's see. Barbara Eden looked like she might have had a nose job, but it's hard to say.
Because they didn't really talk about it back then. Like nowadays, they're a lot more open about it, but back then they're like, "No, I'm just naturally beautiful."
Yeah. Barbara was sexy though, I thought. Fucking.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, because there's definitely a difference
pretty, real pretty.
between.
Yeah.
Although I would have to show it to you. I saw an episode of, pretty sure it was the Boris Karloff show Thriller that had Elizabeth Montgomery in it. I'm gonna have to show you it.
Yeah.
She's cute as a button in that. But yeah, so she was in some other shit too, but I really liked her in that too. But yeah, so let me see. Danny says the best Nicole Kidman ever looked on film was in the film Batman Forever, in my opinion. I don't even remember. I don't remember what she looked like in that. Did I see that movie? Yeah, I'm sure I saw it.
I don't even remember who she played.
God damn it, I've seen so many fucking movies. I've seen so many movies I can't remember which ones I've seen. Because like I said, Zach brought up that one called Birth, and I was like, you're describing it, and I was like, that sounds kind of familiar. I think I might have seen that.
And some of those Batman movies were fucking terrible. I liked the first two. Then they started to get fucking crazy.
Well, everybody hates Batman and Robin, right?
Yeah. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it. He fucking...
As Mr. Freeze.
As Mr. Freeze, and he kind of sucked.
What was the one with Jim Carrey in it as the Riddler?
I don't remember.
I can't stand Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, I will say,
he's annoying.
Is great in dramatic roles. He was great in The Truman Show. He was great in what was the movie with Kate Winslet? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Which we need to review that. I fucking love that movie. He was great in that, but he was just playing like a regular sad sack dude. He wasn't trying to be funny, wasn't talking out of his butt or anything like that. It's like I can't stand that zany. It just seems very try hard. I don't like try hard. So I think that's kind of why it's just too much. Like I get why some people like all the the Ace Ventura movies and stuff like that, but I can't watch that. It just gives me a headache.
I never liked that guy. He just drove me up the wall.
Yeah, but like I said, he can act. If you see him in just like playing a normal person, he's actually great.
He was good as fucking Mr. Roboto in fucking Sonic. I thought he was good in that.
Oh yeah. That was right.
But a lot of his shit, fucking like The Mask and everything, he was just so fucking zany. It would just drive me fucking.
Yeah,
crazy.
I can't. Like I said, I can't stand zany.
And I was just like, that's just cocaine. You know, that's not.
That's what I mean.
That's just cocaine.
And as much as I loved Robin Williams, like he kind of shaded over into that like super coked up.
Yeah.
Like I said, like they were trying too hard.
Yeah.
But he was also great in dramatic roles. Like I said, look at 1 Hour Photo or Insomnia.
Masterpiece.
Or something like that. Like when he plays like a bad guy or he plays somebody. Like a lot of comedians can do that because comedians generally are coming from a place of darkness. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean?
If you've never seen 1 Hour Photo,
we
highly recommended. Robin Williams playing a dark fucking character who works at a 1 Hour Photo. And it's just... It's
super
just a weird
creepy.
fucking movie. I want to own it. I might own it.
It's creepy.
I think I might. No, I don't own that one. That's
I don't think we have that one.
That's another important movie. There should be a Criterion edition of that.
There might be at this point. I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's probably
There's something about the sterile tone of fucking corporate fucking retail shopping, like at Walmart and fucking Walgreens. What it's kind of like, and he's developing photos, which is something that doesn't exist anymore. They don't have photo. Well, they do have photo development. It's just not as big as it was.
Yeah, back then that was the only way.
Back then, there was the only way you could get pictures, and this dude's just stalking people's families through the fucking 1 Hour Photo that he works at, and fucking it. Robin Williams is the shit.
And when your family doesn't adhere to your kind of like photographic representation of it, he gets like real upset.
Yeah.
You know,
but fucking that was the first movie I saw that had Robin Williams. He scared me, but I also had like feelings for him. You got to see the movie to understand.
I mean, that was what was fantastic about it. You did. You felt bad for him.
Yeah, you felt real bad for him.
He humanized, even though he was obviously like a monster.
Yeah.
But he was really good at like humanizing that character because he was just like a sad dude, but he did like horrible shit.
He was scary. Yeah.
Yeah, Danny says Jim Carrey on the film 23 tried way too hard to be a deep film. Yeah, the number 23 I think is the movie that you're talking about. That movie, it seemed like it was a good concept and it seemed like it should have been good, but it was one of those kind of like conspiracy thriller type things, and it just it was too much of a reach, man. If you're gonna have a conspiracy, at least make it a more believable conspiracy than the one he was trying to get to the bottom of. You know what I'm saying? Xana said 1 Hour Photo was great. My parents saw it in the theater. I think I saw it in the theater too, now that I mention it. And loved it. We rented it and I saw it as a kid. Yeah, it's a great fucking movie. Zach says, I just Googled Elizabeth Montgomery because Tom mentioned her. The actress who plays Bartha in this movie played the maid in a movie Montgomery did about Lizzie Borden. That's right. She was in a Lizzie Borden movie. I forgot all about
Google
that.
Barbara Eden.
Yeah. She played Jeannie on the Old I Dream of Jeannie show.
Yeah, Barbara Eden was...
So she went around with her little midriff exposed all the time with her little bikini
That was like
top
the
on.
first fucking official
With her little nose wiggling.
television corporate sex pot. Was your own little genie
See, that's
servant that would come out.
That was Tom's like awakening as a heterosexual man.
Yeah, well, I knew it straight long before that. But fucking that helped. That helped fucking usher me down the path.
I'm trying to think what my awakening was as a heterosexual. Well, I don't even know if I awakened as a heterosexual because a lot of what was like, well, dudes are nice, but like girls are kind of nice too.
Something about Barbara though, man, the eyes, the nose, you know what I mean? She was just she had a killer figure, boobs, the whole 9 yards. She had the whole package. Elizabeth Montgomery playing fucking Samantha the Witch, she was a little more conservative. Although I gotta tell you, they did the same thing. Fucking Elizabeth Montgomery would play her evil twin sister or bad twin sister as fucking...
and Tom liked that better.
Sabrina. Yeah, I like Sabrina better.
He's like, oh, this is much better.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's still the same woman, but now she's like a bad girl.
She's a bad girl with black hair and shit.
Because in case you didn't know,
Sabrina.
Tom loves the bad girl.
I like the bad girls, yeah. I was more into Sabrina. It's like, oh, hell yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
We're all kind of more
She wasn't bad. She was just naughty.
Well, yeah, see, everybody likes that a little bit better. That's why everybody likes the villains better, because they're kind of more interesting. You know what I mean? You don't want them to be too villainous. You don't want them to be like fucking the Green River Killer or some shit like that.
You want to be able to sleep with her and feel you can trust her.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't want her to be so bad that she's gonna like murder you and take all your money and shit
or
like.
fuck all your friends and take all your money.
Exactly.
You don't want her that bad.
You don't want her that bad.
Yeah.
You just want her a little bit bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's kind of there's a balance there. Yeah, Zach said, I think my gay awakening was Daniel Craig.
Who said that?
Zach did.
Zach?
Yeah, Xanada said, I watched I Dream of Jeannie on Nick at Night as a kid. She was hot.
Yeah.
I Dream of Jeannie and Three's Company. LOL.
Yeah.
All those old shows. Oh my god, we used to watch Three's Company like all the time.
Yeah.
It's like you can't even watch it nowadays because it's so cringy. But
they're talking about how Craig looks. He's good. He's rugged. Best thing about Craig is that's where a guy can be handsome and kind of fucking beat up looking at the same time. He was kind of rough.
Yeah, he's kind of like the platonic ideal of that.
Yeah, rough looking, but he was a good looking guy.
But see, that's kind of what we talk about a lot. Whereas like a lot of kind of Hollywood A-listers, like the guys that are in like Marvel movies and stuff like that, are really nice looking.
Too vanilla.
But they all kind of look alike
kind of vanilla. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like if you see them, it's like, yeah, that's an attractive human being. But it's like I can't really tell one from the other. They're just like very, very generically good looking. Yeah. I kind of like people that are interesting looking.
Yeah.
But like, and that's sexier to me. Like that somebody that has their own thing going on. That's like distinctive. Like you immediately know who that is.
Like that fucking crazy, like that crazy looking babe magnet dude. He's just fucking crazy. Fucking Clinton Tarantino had him in all this fucking movies.
Who? Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi.
See, I would argue Steve Buscemi is weirdly hot.
Yeah.
And I'm into weirdly hot.
Everybody,
men and women.
Everybody fucking could fucking vouch that said that fucking Steve Buscemi was a babe magnet.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
And if you ever see, and a lot of it had to do with his roles. If you see some of his photographs he's doing a more serious role. He's a lot.
That dude is sexy as shit.
Yeah, he's a lot more attractive looking when he's just doing a serious. Because they usually got him kind of like this Weasley kind of guy.
Right. Yeah, he was good at playing those.
Yeah, that's usually how they happen. But if you see him in a more straight role where he's more fucking alpha and shit, no, you can see it.
Yeah.
He had a weird look to him that he wasn't conventional, but he was...
you could never confuse him with anybody else, that's for sure.
He had character.
And I like that.
He had a look that gave character.
I like that. Well, like I said, when I was, in the 80s, when I was kind of like an older teenager, a lot of the actors that I had crushes on were... My big ones were Jeremy Irons. I fucking love Jeremy Irons. Oh my god. Dead Ringers. That was like so fucking great. I loved him in that. And John Malkovich also. I also had a thing for John Malkovich. Especially in Dangerous Liaisons. Mm-hmm. Like I said, he's not attractive necessarily, but there's something like really, really sexually alluring about him. I can't really explain what it is, but especially like back then. But that's kind of those were kind of my two big crushes at that time, other than like all the kind of gothy musicians and stuff that I liked. But those were the two main actors that I liked. Also, Christopher Eccleston I really liked, who was in this movie briefly. I first saw him in, because a lot of people know because he was a Doctor Who, but I first saw him in Jude, which was an adaptation of Thomas Hardy's Jude the Obscure, which is one of my favorite novels of all time, even though it's probably the most depressing novel ever written. But that's probably why I like it. But they made an adaptation of it. It was him and Kate Winslet. And I fucking loved that movie. It was so fucking good. And nobody talks about it anymore. But I haven't seen it in a long time, but I really liked it. But I think that was the first thing that I saw him in. And I was like, who the hell is that? That's right up my alley.
They're talking about Buscemi and The Sopranos, that he was great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just saw some photos of him from, I think it was a movie. And he's dressed as a businessman. He's behind a desk. He looks fucking super serious. Looks badass. Looks like he's getting ready to sign your death warrant. I don't know if that came from The Sopranos or not. But it just...
Yeah, I think he's done a lot of like TV series recently.
He can look very serious and real fucking kind of intimidating.
See, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't.
Good face.
I could take or leave. Like I said, all the kind of Marvel guy, like who are the people that are in fucking like Chris Hemsworth and all they. I mean, I kind of confuse them with one another because they all kind of look like each other. I guess they all go to the same plastic surgeon, or they all build them at the same factory or whatever. So it's like I said, they're all good looking. They have, chiseled jawlines and six packs and everything like that. But it's just like they all kind of look like each other, and I can't tell them apart. So
Boardwalk Empire, probably right. Sounds about right.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, the photographs I saw from that, he looks fucking epic in that. I haven't seen the movie though.
Yeah, we should probably. That's a series, right? Yeah, that's a series. I think
he's looking fucking powerful and shit. Yeah,
we should probably watch.
You usually see him as in some kind of Weasley role where he's kind of cool, but he's also not. He's not. You don't have to really worry about it. I first noticed him in fucking Reservoir Dogs, which I liked his character, but he was kind of Weasley.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, that was his character.
That was his character. We have the photographs from Boardwalk Empire. Man, he looked fucking intimidating.
Yeah.
And and powerful, but I haven't seen it.
Zach said, "I think Scorsese did the first episode of that show."
He did.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of buzz about it, but I haven't seen it.
Boardwalk Empire?
Yeah.
What's a series?
And he was in Fargo. That's right.
Yep.
Oh
it's a series. Is that what?
Yeah, it's a series. We just we haven't. I just kind of feel like there's all these series that I need to see that I just never have time. You know what I mean? Although we did have time to watch. We watched all 8 seasons of Hometown. That show in Laurel, Mississippi.
Yeah, where my family's from. Yeah.
Well, because you told me about it when you got back from Mississippi. I'm like, oh, we got to watch that. And they had them all on HBO Max. So we just started watching them. We usually just put them on in the evening and kind of pay attention to them.
They're showing houses that I know, like fucking the Key.
And he's like, oh my God, that's
David Key's
mom's
house.
I know that house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they're redoing.
Yeah.
But and then last night, or no, not last night, but the night before, we were watching it, and just oh my God, we ran out.
Yeah.
We didn't think we were ever gonna run out. We watched all 8 seasons.
Yeah.
Then we started watching.
Series.
Yeah, it's really good. It's actually
We're talking about the Old South, and
I actually was very entertained.
Yeah, they mentioned Heidelberg, which is fucking where my dad was when he died, and that's where I used to go. But I used to go to Heidelberg and Laurel for the summers of almost my whole life as a kid and teenager. It was a good place growing up, and they describe it the same way I've described it to you years back in the show, is that it's basically Mayberry.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is very much like that.
Yeah, and people are moving there from L.A. and fucking New York.
Well, the hilarious thing...
Because they see the show and they're like,
once the show got so popular, because I think it might be the most popular show on the network.
Yeah.
It's on HGTV. That some people are actually moving there just because of the show.
Yeah.
In the later seasons. So they're buying houses and having Aaron and Ben do them up for them. And honestly, through all 8 seasons, because I used to watch a lot of, home renovation and makeover shows and stuff, and and sometimes the designer on there will do some shit, and I'll be like, yeah, but I don't really care for that. It's pretty ugly, but I think every single time they did it, it's not always my style, obviously, but every single renovation they did looked amazing.
Yeah. And they've had people so rich. They had one dude just show up. He says, "So what's your budget?" He goes, "There's no budget."
He's like, "Whatever."
No, let me just whatever you want. I'll buy whatever.
Okay.
House. So they throw a fucking $400,000 house. No problem. And then And actually, I think that house ended up being, what was it, 700,000.
Yeah, I
After
can't
the
imagine what
renovation
that
and
must be like. He's just like, okay, that's fine.
They didn't say what he did, or
Hey, this will
he
be
had no-
$600,000. Okay,
Okay,
that's fine.
yeah, no problem.
I
Just I just want to live here.
I can't imagine.
He fucking bought a southern fucking mansion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, so all right, so I guess we're gonna wrap it up because I've
Yeah.
got to pee and everything like that. So, but yeah, thank you very much, Xánada, for sending this movie. Like I said, I love this movie. I was very excited to watch it again, and I was also kind of excited for Tom to watch it because he had never seen it. I didn't know if he was gonna like it or not because, like I said, it's kind of a slow burn. Is it though?
Not really.
I don't think it's a slow burn.
It's not as slow as the older ones from the
Right.
70s.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like it's not that slow. But I mean, if you're more into kind of like action-packed horror, it's not like that. It's more like atmospheric and stuff. But I mean, it's a classic for a reason. People still talk about it for a reason. And this is like my favorite subgenre of horror. And I was really, really happy to get to watch it again, especially knowing what the twist is. I think it's like really good to rewatch it again because you can appreciate the screenwriting and like all of the clues that are sprinkled in that you don't notice the first time around because you don't know what it's building up to. You know what I mean? So I thought that was like really cool. But yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up this evening. I might do a book review tomorrow. I finished reading a novel that was really good, and so I might come on tomorrow if we have time. If I have time, I might come on and talk about it. It's called The Children of the Dark by Jonathan Janz, and it was really good. If you like Stranger Things or something like that, you'd probably like be really into it. So I might come on tomorrow and talk about it. If we don't have time tomorrow, because like I said, we got to go to the DMV and get tags for the car and everything like that. I don't know how long it's going to take. If I don't have time to do it tomorrow, I'll do it Thursday. Wednesday night, the show is going to be about Frank Abagnale, the very famous imposter who they made the movie Catch Me If You Can about, the Steven Spielberg movie with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. And I've been wanting to do a show about this motherfucker for a really long time. I read the book, his autobiography, a while back, and the shit in there is crazy. I don't know how much of it is true, but he got away with some shit. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about that on Wednesday night. So that should be a fun show. At least nobody got murdered, so we can at least have like a fun time talking about it. But yeah, so hopefully you guys can join us for that. And we will see you guys again. I might see you again tomorrow, but if not, we'll both see you again Wednesday night. Good.